Hey, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Okay, Jen. So there's a hypothetical 1 year engagement. Okay,
Yeah.
brand new client. Today's day one. Let's talk about the first 90 days or so. So uh, tell everyone who you are,
Yeah.
and then here's the question: what is a fractional CMO, and what typically happens in the first 90 days?
Okay. So I'm Jenn Foster. I'm a fractional CMO. I have been providing marketing strategy for hire long before fractional became a buzzword. For over 10 years, I've turned sort of this fractional position into actionable, maximizing revenue for my clients. My background and expertise are in marketing research and translating consumer insights into audiences and then turning that into targeted marketing strategies. So, a business's audience is always one of those most valuable
Hmm.
assets, and you really can't buy it, you have to build it. So, I help companies create and build up their audience and then more effectively target, talk, and sell to them.
All right, sounds great. So what typically takes up like the first 90 days of a brand new engagement?
Yeah, so oftentimes I find it's usually related to the clarity and alignment to their overall business strategy
Hmm.
that then has to kind of parlay into a marketing strategy. And so this includes understanding their, product or service, who that is going to appeal to in target audience, clarifying their unique value proposition and sort of like competitors that are also in market, saying the same thing or not saying the same thing. And then aligning that messaging across all branding channels. Sort of without that clear strategy, it's really challenging to drive that meaningful growth and
Right.
achieve those marketing objectives. So that's where I typically start. Years in 2017, I spent years with Mosquito Shield consulting for them. And the initial engagement was exactly that after kind of like diagnosing the disconnect between what was going into market and then what they were finding when they got online. So they were doing a lot of marketing with direct mail and signage and
Right.
um,
Right.
trade shows and what have you. And then when you'd get to the website, it was like the consumer journey was just broken. Like you didn't even know who the brand, am I in the right place? Like that's where it kind of broke down there. And so this is the kind of work that I did with them where I was really digging in and saying, who is your target audience? What do they want to hear? Where do they want to hear it? And let's make sure that all along that marketing journey where we're messaging them, they know they're in the right place and they're getting the right message at the right time. And they also had the added issue of just sort of having a real lack of a true call to action in the industry, which is very much a direct response, and time sensitive thing.
Yeah.
But because they're so seasonal, um, I had to kind of really assign timing and messaging and go into market with just more pointed um, strategy than I would if someone was in market all year long. Like they really just kind of hit in the spring. They've got their selling season at the end of the spring, early summer, and then they kind of don't need to do too much marketing when
Right.
mosquitoes aren't biting.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, so let's imagine that I'm the CEO of
Mhm.
your new client. Okay, I probably had to convince somebody, either myself or a board or somebody, to put aside that money, that budget, that spend to bring in 12 months of a fractional CMO. Okay, how? What should I do, or what should I not do to make sure I get maximum value from that
Yeah.
CEO? Or if you want to think of it another way, how do companies typically waste the money that they spend on fractional CMOs because there's something they do or don't do that sort of mutes the effectiveness of that fractional CMO?
Sharing information is the most important piece that I
Right.
find. Any CEO that feels like they should hold back information to see if the CMO is worth their salt is really doing themselves a disservice. For me, understanding um, their current cost per lead, cost per acquisition, their current budgets that they're putting into market, those results, and really assessing if they're in the right places for the right reasons at the right time. Um, I really need everything. I like to see everything. The I find solutions in the
Mhm.
most surprising places. So I'll give you an example of that. Again, I'll use Mosquito Shield. I have other examples, I promise. But this is an interesting one where I looked at their keyword search and found that most of the country was searching certain keywords to find them, non-branded keywords. And I decided that we should use those keywords in our display creative. And when we started using that language in our display creative, that display creative started um, doing 80% better than it had in
Mhm.
conversion. So I like to see everything.
Yeah.
And I think that if a CEO thinks they're just going to hold on to this one little piece of information to see if the CMO can sleuth it out, it's just not ideal.
Mm.
We have to be partners.
That's a great answer. Okay, so let's shift perspective, or let's actually stick with me for a second. I'm still the client's CEO, but I'm looking at my marketing department or my marketing team, right? Probably mostly or exclusively filled with junior and mid-level folks, right? What should I expect my marketing team to look like? How should they be different, maybe, or ideally improved? But how are they going to be different at the end of the 12 months of you being in charge of marketing versus the day before you started work?
Yeah, this is a really great question, Dean. I appreciate it because I get into a lot of different engagements at different size companies, requiring just they have different marketing
Mhm.
needs. And those skill sets inside the company vary depending on that business setup. And so oftentimes there's um, an opportunity to help guide that team
Right.
at a very higher level because they are a little junior and they are sort of they're still in that stage of their career where marketing is a very executional function of their career. So what they end up getting is someone showing them how to really dig in and get to the why, the strategy. Why are we doing it this way?
Right.
I know that you can effectively execute it,
Hmm.
but why are we doing it this way? And what are we going to do differently to make it more effective? So, like those teams that are seemingly junior, I'm typically training on how to leverage data and consumer insights to make their overarching marketing effectiveness better. And then there's also teams that I get into that have more senior people. And for those people, for those teams, you know, it typically is a little bit more of a more difficult, in just the way that I engage with them
Right.
situation because it's, they're worried about their job
Mhm.
or they're worried that I'm going to say they're doing something wrong. And again, like I go back to, I love to get into a scenario where I'm helping sleuth out the right answers and showing those people what I'm doing to find them. And so when I get into these engagements, there's this opportunity for me to come in, and usually my first engagement is a 90-day engagement, my choice. I like to go in and say, I'm going to come in, I'm going to assess your team, I'm going to assess your marketing, and if we can get to this place where you have a better strategy and I leave you with a better strategy, either your team, I'll train them, they can take it and run with it, or you can keep me on and I can help manage that going forward. So, but I never sign a contract that's more than 90 days for that first project, because I feel like I want to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
they can do what I need them to do as well. It's on me to make sure that they're going to support what I think the recommendation is.
All right, so let's go to the bottom of that marketing team, or let's do this. There are two Jenn Fosters. Okay, there's you, the CMO today, 2024, but there's also another one who's also you, but she's 22. This is her first job full time. She's the most junior person on a marketing team. All right, and you get a chance to take that person aside, that younger Jen, and like give her advice. Okay, it's 2024. You're going to be in marketing for decades. Like, here's what I would advise you to do from me to me. What would you tell that Jen?
Um, I would tell that Jen, as I've told many coworkers that have worked for me over the years, to ask a lot of questions and make
Right.
sure they know when to ask for help, to be solutions focused
Mm-hmm.
when they're coming to their managers, and really think through, even if it's wrong, how would you approach the problem you're trying to solve? Do the work. Like, you kind of have to put your head down and say, okay, I need to know something about Google Analytics. I need to know something about Meta. I need to know something about these
Right.
channels. And then the client, and apply that knowledge in a meaningful way. And I don't know that you have to answer the entire equation, but you do have to do the work and do the studying and make sure that you are going to someone that perceivably has that expertise to get more information and make that recommendation whole.
Well, that's good advice. Okay, Jen. So I'm going to be super direct on this question. Okay, not trying to, you know, question anyone's life choices, but let's face it, there are easier ways to make a living than being a fractional CMO.
Sure are.
Right? It can be an
Sure shit.
enormously frustrating job.
Yeah.
Why do you do this job? Why? Why? Why?
Uh, well, should I say on a podcast that I'm mental? Because you kind
There
of
you
have
go.
to be. You have to be. Um, I have always felt like, in my early days in big agencies, I always felt like they were putting forward a solution that aligned with the talent on the roster
Right.
and the sunk cost on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted I've always wanted to break free of that and solve it for the business. I think I have always been a natural entrepreneur, since like birth, and have always been like, no, I want to get money in the door. I want to make this successful. I want this person to win. And so that is so far in the core of me. The sucky part of being a fractional CMO is finding business for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's always the hard part. um, I think you have to be very resilient, and you also just have to always be open to conversations wherever they may happen. So I find a lot of people that want that sort of like 9 to 5 scheduled job, or 9 to 2, whatever you think you want, that's scheduled. Don't do this. Do
Yeah.
not.
No.
Because my days are Yeah, some days I get to leave my desk at 3 o'clock and go see my son's concert at his school and not come back to the desk. But then other days I'm kind of like, I had a thought about this social campaign, and I go in and I start thinking through it, and it's 8 o'clock at night. And it doesn't matter to me because
Yeah, it never turns off.
I'm balancing my life the way I need to balance it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
that
think
makes a lot of
that,
sense.
yeah, people shouldn't do it if they think that there's going to be consistency and
No,
you're not going to have to go and ask people for money.
yeah, it's very different to.
Yeah.
I'm not a fractional CMO, right? But almost all of my business comes from fractional CMOs. I keep getting. I say I keep getting. My business is I'm brought in by fractional CMOs, usually at the beginning to write for that client, right?
Yeah.
Whatever they're going to intentionally put in front of a prospect, ads and emails and that's what I write. And uh, when my wife recently changed careers about 2 years ago and started working in finance at Pepsi, and she works from home like most days, and by the time she sort of like gets through with her morning corporate stuff, remember all the morning corporate stuff that you have to do every morning, all the work other people have created
I
for
work
you
out
that aren't
now.
your
I
job.
work out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like there's like chunk in the middle of the day where she actually has like some, and then at the end of the day it gets busy, and she looks at me and she says like, it kind of seems like you're not working. And I say like, I work every day. I said the difference is in a lot of my work, I just because of the nature of my work, right? Nobody pays me to write another bland headline, right? It needs to like, and so I said there's a lot of like uncomfortable tension where I just have to sort of sit in that discomfort, knowing that it's gonna come to me.
Yeah.
I can't just sit down and write it or it'll be mediocre.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my work is working on stuff that's not for that client because I usually have to let it sit a couple of days. But I say my wife is the exact opposite. Like if given the same assignment, and a lot of people in corporate are like this, including most people in marketing, right? If they get an assignment, they can start work on it right away. But like they're not the standout creative performers on that team.
Yeah.
And you don't need everyone to be standout creative performer, but you need some people, but like some of us just like it's the suckiest part of the job.
Yeah. It's like you're
We
always
never turn it off.
on.
Yeah,
And I don't turn it off. Right. If
you
I have a
can't.
thought in the middle of the night and I'm like,
Yep.
ooh, I want my restaurant client to have a menu and with
Yeah.
like, then I have to like get up and like write it down
Yep.
so I don't forget it
Yep.
because I'm
That
of
is
a
my
certain
only
age now.
ironclad habit. Some days I don't
Yeah.
go to
So
the
it's
gym.
like,
Some days I eat extra pizza. You know, that's no problem. But if an idea comes to me, like no matter what, if
yeah.
I'm in, if I'm occupied, doesn't matter. I have to stop. It's the only commitment that I keep to myself
Right.
without exception. And you have to, because
Yeah.
I'm going to need that idea 3 days from now or a year from now. And so, but yeah, it's like sitting in that tension of not quite having the answer yet. And,
Yeah.
it's going to come, but you have to sort of put up with it. It's the worst part of this job. But also the best part of this job is that I can look like I'm not working. And it turns out I'm working. So
Yes. True.
anyway, this podcast isn't about me. I'm not even a fractional CMO. Hopefully this never makes it to air. Right.
Everything you're saying though, it applies to my life.
Yeah.
My daughter's 15 and she sees me working from home
Yeah.
and she's like, I want a job like yours. And I was like, girl, you need to bust your bum for
Hmm.
20 years to do
Hmm.
this like this. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's a difference.
I do not recommend people move into my profession. It is, it is mentally
Yeah.
way harder than physically hard. That's for sure.
Well,
Okay.
and it's also subjective, right? So
Yeah.
like finance is finance. It's finite.
Yeah.
And um I always say this about like nursing and being a doctor. It's just like I hate saying it this way, but like sometimes you kill someone, sometimes you save someone. Like
Hmm.
there's no subjectiveness really, where
Right.
there's just like a color choice or a channel choice or whatever it is. Just like everything rides
Yeah.
on an opinion or many opinions.
Yeah. And it's often in all of these, a lot of on my website. There's a lot of examples of like the best stuff that I've written, and it's crazy how much of everything that's created in marketing, right, is just so mediocre. And you ask yourself, like, why did they spend money on that? But a lot of the time, it comes down to having like the right CMO or the right person in charge or the right copywriter or the right graphics person,
Yeah.
right? And just happen to be available. You happen to know them, and they happen to be like, hey, let's work on this. And like you get something that's kind of magic in a bottle. And
I
then
was
the
just
next
gonna
thing you work
say,
on,
right.
different circumstances, and it's like, meh.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, our profession takes a little magic.
Yeah.
You have to be a little magical. Can't be a
Okay.
muggle.
Well, we've been patting ourselves on the back a lot. So let's stop that. I tell the junior copywriters that I coach, I say, if you ever catch yourself thinking, that's a really clever turn of phrase, like that's really, I'm a good writer. It's like, kill that line immediately.
Yeah,
No one wants to read that. You're the only one who's ever going to love it. Like,
I know.
murder your darlings as
Yes.
early as you can. If you think that you wrote something and you're proud because you're so good, you need to kill it, because
Yeah, you just
it's
need to build
it's
up that thick skin because
self-love,
someone's gonna kill it
right?
for
That's all
you.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, don't get your feelings hurt.
No, don't put it. It's not an emotional investment. It's just business.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We should get out of here. All right. So who should contact you these days, and how should they do it?
So I have my website up, as you can see. That's
Mhm.
a great place to reach me. Usually I get a call.
JennFosterMarketing.com with two
Yes.
N's for people who are listening instead of watching.
Yes, thank you for that. But I usually get called when a CEO or CRO is looking to find their audience
Right.
and they need to create a strategy to reach them. Looking for market opportunity. I do audience personas.
Mhm.
I do the consumer journeys based on that product and its personas, and brand positioning and data analysis. Like I also do quite a bit to get to those consumer journeys and those audiences. I do quite a bit of data analysis to drive decisions. Most people, most companies I've been in with are either collecting their data incorrectly or haven't been collecting it well enough.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you very, very much for being here, Jen, and also
Thank
for the
you.
indulgence in
Yeah.
the off-topic conversations that we had.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. And so thanks for watching. You're 99% likely watching this on a clip instead of the full episode. So that's cool. Full episodes exist. They're on YouTube, but it's okay that you got clips. That's where we live most of the time. Thanks again, Jen, and we'll see everyone next time.